Hi, everyone. I guess you can see my screen. So I thought that since we were talking about finance, that I would start out with something that I knew. And I put up there uh, a definition of scarcity economics, which I think recently most of us have been confronted with the reality of. Going to the store or even online shopping, we've been faced with shortages of toilet paper, cleaning supplies, and hand sanitizer. Obviously, there were limited supplies and seemingly limitless wants. When I was growing up, I'll be honest, scarcity economics was not a term that we threw around the dinner table. I can't remember any discussions about economics in general. That's not to say that we didn't understand economics. My dad was an oil truck driver delivering home heating oil to people. And on Saturdays, many evenings, and in the summer, he was a house painter. My mom was a stay at home mom, and I'm the oldest of four younger brothers. My parents were able to buy a house with a VA mortgage that required a $100 down payment. No days like that anymore. Given those facts, even without studying economics, it's easy to realize that resources were limited and that my parents were probably confronted daily with the tension between what they had and what was needed. What all of us did know was that my parents always had their envelope ready on Sunday morning. We always had offering in our pockets for each of our Sunday school classes and for a youth group on Sunday nights. I don't know how that happened. I just know that it always did. Another thing that we all knew was that our dinner table was open to anyone and everyone. We were never told that we couldn't bring someone home for dinner with us. After church on Sunday, one or both of my parents would have rounded up someone or several someones who they invited to dinner that day. Sometimes it was a person or a family visiting the church for the first time. And sometimes it was whoever had the worst looking clothes on, or the most beat up shoes, or maybe they had ridden to church on a bike. Somehow my parents had their own understanding of who might need to be included the most. It wasn't only food that somehow increased based on what they shared. My parents managed to do that with their time as well. All of us learned early on that it was important to serve on the boards of church, that teaching Sunday school was a privilege, and that chaperoning teenage camping trips was part of your parental responsibility. My mom was always babysitting for someone, and it seemed like all the kids loved being at our house. She was a homeroom mother and helped in the school library. And my dad coached and umpired for over 30 years. When my dad tore his Achilles tendon, he had to be out of work for 6 weeks. It was a tough time for them financially, with three of my brothers still at home. One day, right before Thanksgiving, one of the neighbors knocked on the door, and he held a box in his hand, and it had a turkey in it and everything that a family would need for dinner. And there was an envelope with money in it. And the neighbors said, "We knew that you always helped everyone, and so we wanted to give back to you like you've always given to everyone." They believed that God could and would provide through anything. Somehow he had brought together a boy born in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee and signed over to missionaries at age 8 with two of his sisters after their mother died, to be raised in an orphanage in Pennsylvania, with a girl who had been born in Detroit, Michigan, to a 16-year-old mother and a 21-year-old father in the year after the start of the Great Depression. When they looked at their family, they saw a life that had been unimaginable to any of their parents. They had a strong marriage of 55 years before my mom died. They saw all five of their children with life work that was important and meaningful to them, with two of them as pastors. Their grandchildren and great grandchildren continued to bring home people for Sunday dinners, and who they counted as family was always increasing. As much as they ever needed, God had provided. And I believe that this is what God wants for all of us. He wants and is able to supply all our needs. He desires us to live a life of abundance, a life where we have enough of everything and can share abundantly in the good work. I think this is especially important during this time, not only for the shortages that we see in the stores, but the the realities that all of us are dealing with, maybe personal finance, maybe our church's finance. I think that we have to remember that God wants us to live abundant life and that he will share that abundance with us.